One of the most important marketing channels any MSP can use is email marketing. Even though it's pretty much the oldest digital channel, email marketing works in 2026. It's a very reliable way to build an audience, grow a relationship with that audience, and then find out who the most active prospects are. But don't take my word for it. I've lined up a true email marketing expert to tell you how you can make email perform better for your MSP.
Hi, I'm Perry Sharaw. I'm the owner and CEO of Duma Marketing, and I am an email marketing expert. I've been working in email marketing since the beginning of the 2000s, and looking forward to talking with you today.
And not as much as I'm looking forward to diving into email, because despite email having been invented in 1876, it is still a very, very valid marketing channel for MSPs today. And, on this podcast and in my YouTube videos, I'm always saying to MSPs, look, you need to work on your LinkedIn, but that's a borrowed audience. Someone else owns that. Microsoft owns that. Your second audience you need to work on is your email list, because that's an owned audience. That data is always going to be yours. And you have to do both those things. So we're going to do quite a rapid fire interview today. We're going to look at how you can build your email list. We're going to look at email list hygiene, which I know is a massive thing. We're going to talk about the platforms that you think are hot right now and the ones that MSPs should be using. We'll look at automation as well, and we'll talk about what you do to help MSPs. That's a lot to do in 15 minutes, but I know that we can do it. So just give us a potted history of your history, as it were. So give us the sort of the 10-second overview of how you came to be in this position as one of the leaders in email marketing.
Yes, well, I started years ago with a mergers and acquisitions firm after my early career in print journalism, and so came to it as a writer. Ultimately worked my way up into the C-suite of a mergers and acquisitions firm where I managed information technology and marketing. And so I was the executive vice president of those, and I pretty much Frankensteined a CRM that could coordinate with outbound email marketing and started to really delve into database marketing back in the day.
I love it. And of course, the tools today are so much better than the tools were back then. So I've been doing email marketing pretty much about 20 years. And I started off with something that was once called Infusionsoft, is now called Keep, K-E-A-P.
Oh, yeah.
We migrated away from that last year in 2025, and we migrated over to HubSpot, which I know that you're a gold partner of HubSpot. And we'll talk about how beautiful but expensive HubSpot is later in the interview. I'm interrupting myself to ask, do you have a copy of my book yet? MSP Marketing Start Here shows you how to go from 0 leads to new clients. It's the basics of marketing for your MSP explained in a 45-minute read, and you can get it as a paperback, on Kindle, and on Audible. Go to mspmarketingedge.com/books, or better still, scan the QR code. So let's start at the beginning, which is building an email list. So the average MSP that I speak to, they've kind of got a CRM, but they're not really using it. They've kind of got some people in there. It's a mix of clients and a few leads and prospects. They're not doing a lot of segmenting, and there's no strategy. There's no specific focus on building the email list. But where would you recommend in a situation like that, where it's a mature business, you've been going 5+ years, you haven't really ever got started with it? What would you say is the right way to get started and start to systematically build an email list?
Yes, well, you definitely need to ensure you have a form on your website. You also, if you're doing things like attending trade shows, anything that you're doing where you could possibly be capturing email lists, make sure that you're capturing them. If you're doing any kind of advertising and you're driving them to just an empty page without a form, rethink that and add the form, whether it's a pop-up form or just a first name email form on the website. Ideally, you're going to get a little bit more than that on the form, but starting with first name and email is a great place to begin.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you and I know, as users of HubSpot, when you're using an advanced tool like HubSpot, you've got data enrichment plugins, such as the HubSpot one is called Breeze. So we've migrated in the last year and found, to our delight, we only need a business email address now, and Breeze will go and enrich that and discover everything else that's out there in various databases, which completely changes the game. Because as we all know, the more fields you ask people to fill in, the less likely they are to fill in the form. So We just get an email address now, and Breeze does, in most situations, it does the rest. On the subject of getting people to fill in forms, you go back 10 years, it was really easy. You used to offer a PDF guide and people would fill it in, and that's it. And obviously that does work today. It probably works more in consumer marketing than B2B marketing, but it's very hard, and especially for MSPs whose subject matter is very technical and ordinary people don't really care. So outside of PDF guides, what other kind of lead magnets are you seeing that are working well right now? And just to define what a lead magnet is for everyone listening or watching, it's something that someone wants, so they're willing to fill in the form to get.
Absolutely. And free consultations still seem to rule the day when it comes to B2B form conversion. So you definitely want to continue to offer those, keep the form short. Remember that you can use Breeze, or you can even use just progressive profile building as you work people through the customer journey. One thing to keep in mind is that there are some ways to be helpful with PDF downloads, whether they're a checklist for, a remote worker user setup, or some other things that maybe aren't exactly germane to something that you would provide to your client, but they could help them in the same realm. They're relevant and helpful. Just stay relevant and helpful. And those are the lead magnets that are succeeding.
Yeah, I love that. And in fact, there's something that we've been working on with an MSP just to trial it recently. And it was a quiz to build your perfect work from home setup. And they go through like a quiz. We use tally.so, but you could use Typeform for this. And then at the end, it generates a personalised PDF, which it's the same PDF, obviously, because there is one great at-home setup. But that's getting so much more engagement than just having that download on its own. So I think I agree with you. Being creative with the way that we're looking at how do we deliver the information is the right way to do it. So once you've got that email list and you start building it, and as you and I know, it's a never-ending job. You can never stop building your email list because people unsubscribe and leave that list as much as almost as fast as you're adding them. We talked about very briefly earlier about email hygiene. Can you explain what that is and why that's so important?
Yeah, email hygiene is making sure you have a healthy list that wants to receive your emails. Maybe they don't want to act on your emails every day or every time that you send email to them, but they want to receive the types of information that you're sending to them. And if they don't, then ideally they unsubscribe. And a lot of people in email are afraid of unsubscribes. Unsubscribes are just another way to keep things healthy. The other important thing about email hygiene is occasionally running sunset automations. So you can actually remove people who just are non-responsive. I know there are still studies out there that show that even though the longevity of people retaining email addresses is improving, at one point, they were saying that people might create a new email address every 6 months. Of course, that's not a business concern. For the most part, but people do move businesses and you want to stay with them and you as long as possible, but you also don't want those types of unanswered, unengaged email addresses dragging down your list and sender reputation.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a lot of the MSPs I've been working with in the MSP Marketing Edge just recently, I've been recommending that they focus on getting more people to reply to those emails. So if they send a broadcast email out from their CRM, it's that anything to hit reply and let me know you got this, hit reply with your question, because obviously every reply that comes in, it's sending a message, it's sending a positive signal to the email client, it's sending it to your CRM, and also it's great for engagement because let's be honest, the ultimate goal of emailing is not just engagement and getting in their inbox. We want to find out who's nearly ready to talk, who's entering the research phase of switching MSPs. So I love this. This is great advice. Let's talk about the tools. So we've mentioned HubSpot, we've mentioned Keep. There are obviously those are at the kind of the luxury end, aren't they, of the CRM market. I found out today that Salesforce, which has always traditionally been an enterprise solution, is now targeting small businesses. So we can now throw Salesforce in there. They have a small business package. I'm sure they're going to end up being as expensive as HubSpot. And even for them, that's going to be cheap, right? Because Salesforce is a $50,000, $60,000 plus a year investment, and small businesses won't spend that. But then at the other end of the market, we've got, I suppose we've got like Active Campaign in the middle. At the bottom of the market, you've got Mailchimp, MailerLite. We can throw High Level in there. I mean, there's probably 1,000 other CRMs that we haven't mentioned. What's your Well, what's your recommended CRM, and what are sort of the big factors to think about when you're picking a CRM?
Yeah, over the years, I have leaned toward either HubSpot for folks who are in where it's the appropriate budget. I was actually a beta user of HubSpot back in 2002, and I've grown with it, and I really enjoy it. It offers a lot of the great things that Salesforce has always been able to do, but they make it much more intuitive than Salesforce usually. When it comes to kind of smaller budgets, I usually recommend ActiveCampaign. It has served many, many clients well, and it's scaled with them as their budget has grown. Even we've been able to use their robust automation interface to build out. I mean, at one point, I have a 150 store retail establishment where I was able to build out individual flows for each of the stores and layer in so much complexity there, but take it all the way back down to just trying to maintain communication with prospects, and ActiveCampaign or HubSpot have been kind of my go-tos.
Okay, so that is so cool. So you were actually a beta tester on HubSpot. And how was that 23 years ago, right? In fact, I remember reading a book about HubSpot I think it was called Disrupted. And it was one of the early employees. And it was like a warts and all expose of the culture of HubSpot. And you kind of, if you ever read that, you'd think, yeah, this company's not going anywhere. And obviously it hasn't done any damage at all, because HubSpot is an amazing company and an amazing tool as well. So let's talk finally about automation. So, a lot of the CRMs we were just talking about do have automation. I know ActiveCampaign is very good for automation at its price level. Obviously, HubSpot is insanely good. High Level is very good as well. Would you say that you're kind of hobbling yourself if you don't get a platform that allows you to do some serious automation, and especially for MSPs who obviously are very good at automating absolutely everything and integrating everything?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like, especially for MSPs, the market, your audience is expecting you to be cutting edge, and they're expecting you to perform in very many similar ways as they're getting as they're receiving from marketing in the consumer space. That is something that study after study has recently shown, that B2B marketing has to evolve to mirror more of the consumer type marketing that people are used to receiving, because this is just becoming a form of communication that, it would be like you need to speak the language. And as an MSP, you really, I believe, should be providing them the same types of responses to forums, the same types of prospecting communication that they're used to receiving from other types of companies.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's so funny when an MSP says to me, but I want my marketing to be more professional, but I want it to be more polished and more business-like. And it's like, but the business people you're reaching here are going home and they're consumers and they're watching YouTube and watching Netflix and they're reading consumer emails. And I completely agree. You can be polished and professional, but we all have a very high standard of marketing that we're used to. In our consumer inboxes, as it were, in our social media marketing, and the B2B marketing has to catch up with that. Perry, I could talk for literally hours with you about email marketing. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to do that right now. So just tell us a little bit what you actually do. What do you do to help MSPs with their email, and what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, what we do is we start out with a discovery. We really try and learn your tone, your voice, as you said, the polished professional kinds of messaging that you might want to send to your audience. And then we dig in. And if you don't already have a CRM, we help you build that. We help you identify. Over the years, I usually analyze around 30 different CRMs each year and update based on the functionality that they've added on. And of course, there's usually a handful of new ones. So I test those out. And so I'll help you identify the CRM that works best for you, and the email marketing functionality that you require. Then we help develop things like a welcome series, abandon inquiries, try and save some of those folks who have landed on your site through advertising or other means, and maybe not taken action. I help you identify ways to keep your list clean, and then ultimately your overall sender reputation healthy. The best way to get in touch with me is to visit my website, Duma, DUMACX.com. And you can visit that site and check out the form that's available there, learn more about our business. There's also a phone number that you can use on that website to reach out to me.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Edge.